I'm Bob Zimmer, Member of Parliament, here today with Dean Werk, Fred Helmer, and the one and only Ed Fast. And we're talking about the fisheries. And we're on the Fraser today. And first of all, we'd like to talk about, it seems like the only tool that DFO has to use are closures when talking about threatened species of salmon. But what you might not see on camera, there's a lot of fish out there as part of the Mark Selective Fishery. Dean, talk about closures. Are they the only answer?
Well, it's not a solution that's working for us, and I don't think closing any fishery is good for any user group. I think looking to the solutions and working together gives us an opportunity. The Mark Selective Fishery for the future, increasing our, up to 100% of the marking rather than 10%.
Right.
Having an opportunity to learn different methodologies of selective fishing. When you're the recreational public fisher, having an opportunity to change and adapt to giving us, just an opportunity to be out here,
Exactly.
social, mental welfare of
Yep.
people, especially in these times. There's many solutions that we can have rather than closing a fisher, and we want to be a part of that solution as good leadership.
Awesome. Fred?
Well, absolutely, Dean. I mean, the reality is, if you take a look at the last 40 years of the Fraser River, the mighty Fraser River, an iconic river, world destination with massive amounts of salmon and steelhead coming into this, very fortunate to have the Fraser River here. Right now, we're basically shut down. And why is that? And it's because we have a species river, and whenever you have a conservation concern, basically the bottom line is you're closed. And so what has to happen is you have to look at innovation for selective fishing, not just on the public fishery, which we can do and demonstrate, but also the other bigger impacts also have to move toward selective fishing. And part of it is we have a lot, as you said, a lot of hatchery fish that are not marked. And so it's all about protecting wild fish. And to protect wild fish, you have to mark the hatchery fish. And at least those are opportunities for retention. And that's for everybody. So that's the way it should go.
So, Fred, when you're talking about we're shut down, you're referring to recreational anglers on the Fraser, on the ocean, who can no longer go out there and fish because of closures, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And you talked about mass marking. Right now, only 10% of the hatchery fish are marked. I think we want to be clear that hatchery fish are in abundance out there. They are there in order to protect the wild salmon so that recreational fishers can still get out there, fish for salmon, but not in any way impact the wild salmon. Right now, 10% of those hatchery fish are actually being marked. So those are the only 10% that can actually be identified as being from a hatchery.
Yeah.
They could mark 100%, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that would be good science, absolutely. Yeah. Because again, the concern is on wild stocks, and everybody believes wild fish forever, that's good. But if you're going to look at the science selectively, you're really not looking at proper science. We need to have selective fishing that provides opportunity, especially on marked fish, and protect the wild fish. And there needs to be some new technology. We can't live in the past of how we used to fish. We have to move forward, and that's why we're here. The angling community wants to show leadership and demonstrate that there is options to allow us to fish and still have conservation.
Right. And I'll bring up a document from our BC government that's it's been sent to DFO. And talks about selective fishing as it's an opportunity that should be investigated and really provided because we know it works. So just some quotes from the document. I thought it was great. The traditional management regime for salmon has not resulted in significant changes in the trajectory of BC's wild salmon stocks. Stronger action is needed in order to preserve remaining stocks and maintain certainty of access for harvesters, including consideration of new and innovative fisheries management measures. And that's why we're here today, is to see this demonstrated on the river. Just one more quote. We also encourage DFO to implement some of the specific fishery proposals that have been put forward that balance conservation with harvest opportunities where possible, including those marked selective fishing opportunities recommended by the Sport Fishing Advisory Board for recreational harvest. The province believes adoption of these types of new management approaches may be necessary to ensure harvest opportunities remain in the face of declining stocks. And I just really appreciate what the BC government has done. They nailed it with the statement. There's many more quotes in the document. The BC government is saying to do this. We're seeing the recreational fishery saying to do this. We've seen evidence in research back as even further back, more than 20 years ago, saying selective fishing should be pursued. And
Bob,
I guess the next question is, why isn't it?
Let's not forget, it's not only the BC government, it's not only recreational anglers in our province, it is the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, who are all implementing creative measures to address declining wild salmon stocks by allowing more fishing for the hatchery fish. That's consistent with policy that's being implemented in Washington and Oregon. Our province here wants to see that happen. And for some reason, DFO is not responding positively to these requests.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, but it really seems that they completely ignore the economics. It's like the economics don't matter, and we all know how important it is. But I have always professed, being out here for over 50 years fishing with my grandfather, my dad, my son, and my grandson now, the value is exponentially higher on the social factor. And to me, I mean, my job was to get up every day and come out here and fish. Now I'm told, don't bother, go golfing, and I'm a lousy golfer. But at the end of the day, I think that there is a way forward. They need to look at things realistically. They need to look at the real impacts and work collectively in cooperation. First Nations, public fisheries, commercial fishermen all need to be included, listened to, and let's move forward in a positive way, because there's just so much concern and frustration with the fisheries right now. The end is not far. It really isn't.
Dean, talk to us about mental health and how the recreational fishery can really help with that.
Well, I just think, I mean, you look at COVID times, and here we are in a river that, if we would reel this back a little bit and talk about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we'd be all scattered all over this bar having an opportunity to go Chinook fishing. Right. I mean, it was vibrant here within our community. Yeah. People, families came out here. We recreated together. We rubbed shoulders together. Yeah. That's what we did in growing up. It was part of our DNA to just go fishing. And it is important to the present and future generations that we protect the opportunity so that people can go out and recreate together. That mental well-being for people, whether you're golfing, you're doing whatever, fishing is part of our culture. So it's important that we move forward. And again, what I look to is, our simple process that has been ignored by federal fisheries and the minister is our SFAB, Sport Fish Advisory Board. Yeah. And we have made so many recommendations to creating a selective fishery opportunity here on the Fraser River. And as Fred says, the mighty Fraser River, the biggest salmon population of a river in the entire world, is now being degraded. DFO is not listening. The process, the SFAB process, just does not seem to be working. And we need to come up with a solution. We want to get out here fishing for mental health. It's economics, it's social, it's important to all of us. And again, as I said, the present and future generations rely on us, people like us, to make that voice and to create something better for all of us.
Well, and I think you said rely upon, and one thing that we've talked about before, Dean, is really the ones that are doing the environmental stewardship, the efforts along the river to really remediate salmon and some of those declining populations are you. You're the ones that are going out there doing the data. You showed me a document from 1996 where I know, Fred, you were a big part of that, where fishermen, they would write down what they caught and really study the fishery and gave that data to DFO so they'd have some accurate numbers to go by. And when you threaten your livelihoods, all that just goes away. And then we don't have good data anymore. We don't have any, environmental stewardship on the rivers anymore. And again, it's DFO's sort of move to just push everybody off the water, and we lose so much when that happens.
Yeah, and we did that, and that was the Fraser Valley Salmon Society, which Fred was the original president, co-founder with Chris Gadsden and Dr. Marvin Rosano. So many great guys back in the day created that logbook program, and you turned the logbook program in at the end of the year. There was even prizes awarded by DFO to turn your logbooks in. And it was a great way of recording your catches. And again, a simple way of doing it today could be that logbook program.
Working with fishers themselves.
Working with all the fishers and all the user groups to make everything transparent and open.
So who does all the tagging of the sturgeon in the river?
So,
is it DFO or is it the recreational?
Well, you know what? That's just one of many programs. But the sturgeon tagging program is one of the largest, most successful tagging program in the world, and that's done right here on the backs of the angling guides, the public fishery. But it is in conjunction with the provincial government and the Fraser River Sturgeon Conservation Society. But you know, I'm pretty proud of that. I mean, we've tagged. We're getting close to 200 incidences. We got about 130,000 fish tagged. The science that's coming out of that is incredible. What you get with good science is you get good decisions for management. Exactly. We're lacking that on our salmon resource, and I think at the end of the day, if you take the public fishery out of it, you lose just an incredible resource to gather data, science, tag fish, and give back. I mean, I know we raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, goes back into habitat restoration, and I know that the people that are out here, they are the people that are working their butts off to go into the streams and dig ditches and plant trees. That's all volunteer work, and the amount of money and energy that will be lost if you just decimate the public fishery, and that's the way it's going, would be very, very sad.
Just a few minutes ago, Fred, you were demonstrating a selective fishing technology. Why don't you tell us about that?
Welcome to the Fraser River. Today we're out on the Fraser River. We're going to demonstrate some selective fishing, which we're very proud of. Bar fishing is using a spin and glow, a hook, which I am taking the pointy part off so that we actually are not fishing today. We're just demonstrating what bar fishing is. We have about a 16-ounce weight, about a 3-foot leader, and a lure. Now this is very effective on catching salmon, but the point is this will not catch sockeye salmon, so it's very selective. So if there's a conservation concern for sockeye, this can be used as a positive way to get the anglers out fishing for Chinook. So the selective fishing technology, I mean, first of all, you got to understand, anglers that come out here, I'm going to tell you, we don't have a big impact. We proved that in the logbook. We proved that in 1980. We proved it in 1995. We don't have a big impact. But having said that, anglers still care, number one, about conservation, and they're willing to do more. We just demonstrated how we could fish the entire year with a spin and glow, and if you had a concern for sockeye, you would not catch one. That's not selective fishing, that's avoidance fishing, and the public fishery is willing to do that. They're just not willing to accept the thing going south, and we're not out here, period, because then we're not part of the resolution and the solution.
Maybe explain for the viewer though that avoidance fishing, you know what it's about, Fred, that I don't know if the viewer knows that certain fish won't bite a certain lure. So maybe just explain what it was kind of referring to in the selective fishing method that you're demonstrating this morning. Just explain for the viewer how it works.
So what we're going to do is we have a barbless hook, but we're going to make it no point at all. So we're going to cut the very tip of the hook off, so it really can't catch a fish at this point. So anyway, demonstration purposes, this is just a bar fishing rig, so we're going to throw it on the river here. And this bar fishery is very traditional. Been going on for 60 plus years. It's a great way to catch Chinook salmon and other salmon, steelhead, but it won't catch sockeye, and that's one of our plans. So there you go. We are sort of fishing. Well, first of all, anglers, when they catch a fish, they have regulations. You're allowed 1 Chinook a day, 10 for a season. Those seem to be fair and reasonable regulations, but right now we're not allowed any. So what do? Well, if we have a species of concern at all in the river, we do not fish.
Like sockeye.
Yes, and last year, the worst year in 100 years. So they didn't want you to come out here because you might hook a fish. And there are ways to fish where you can catch a lot of sockeye. if they're in the river. What we're saying is, if there are Chinook, and there are times, like in September last year, there was lots of Chinook. We still didn't fish because of concern of sockeye. We said we could use bar fishing technology, which we demonstrated, zero interference with sockeye. But that is not a topic of discussion. DFO is not interested. And at the end of the day, it's a bad deal for the public fishery.
I think one thing that we talk about the selective fishery and being selective and avoidance fishing, we're looking at also sort of larger amounts of fish to feed communities and that kind of thing. So it's not just one fish at a time. And I just would like to, there's ways that we could do that. I think there's some science and research around that where you can selectively fish larger volumes of fish. And a person that we all know, Peter Krahn, has been a leader in that technology and really trying to get that demonstrated and proving that works for instead of using some other more harmful ways to catch fish, where bycatch is a big problem. This can very selectively fish where there's lots of Chinook. It can take the Chinook and leave the ones that are the stress populations alone and let them swim on down the river, up the river, whatever it may be. Another quote from this BC document: we again encourage DFO to move away from mixed stock fisheries and non-selective gear types with high fishing related incident mortality, and to continue to consider other forms of selective fishing that avoid steelhead mortality through changes to timing, gear type, and location. This is just what we're talking about. One more quote from this document again in BC, because one thing that we haven't talked about is the southern resident killer whale population and how having a selective fishery, hatchery fish are really good for really anything that eats fish along the river, isn't it? We look forward to further discussion regarding salmon enhancement. We encourage increased Chinook mass marking to enable better management and identification of hatchery Chinook production. This can lead to efficiencies in Chinook production and better management of harvest, which can lead to increased prey availability for the southern resident killer whale and certainly for harvesters. And I think it goes to what you were talking about, Ed, too, about the marking, the mass marking. And maybe Dean, if you just explain a little bit about the mass marking aspect about the selective fishery.
Yeah, well, they've increased in the Chilliwack area and the Chehalis area. They've increased the production of the white Chinook salmon, which is the preferable fish for the orcas to eat, the killer whales to eat. And what they do is they've increased it, but the unfortunate part is we're still only marking 10% of the fish. Right. So again, the ocean fishers, all the people up and down the coast having an opportunity to go and harvest a hatchery fish, right, paid for and produced by taxpayer dollars, right, in our hatcheries. It's a good thing. Takes the pressure off of the wild salmon, right, and gives an opportunity to produce way more salmon. Everybody is a winner when we have opportunity for more fish, whether it's the indigenous side, the commercial side, or the public fishery. Yeah. So increasing and having an opportunity to increase our mass marking to 100%. So it's a little bit more money for us to do that. Yeah. They're doing it in Washington, they're doing it in Oregon, and they're seeing great successes with that, yes, where everybody then has an opportunity to go out and fish.
So again, I think we see the provincial government, we see so many people saying to DFO, and the minister just doesn't want to listen. I think that's what we're trying to bring some attention to this issue. All of us here, is what the minister really needs to make a positive decision here based on science. We've said all along it's awfully easy to close a fishery. It's more work to manage and open a fishery, but that's what they're supposed to do. That's what DFO's job is to do.
Talk about the letter that 25 MPs from British Columbia sent to the minister.
Yeah, it was actually really encouraging. It's from a colleague of ours, Mel Arnold, a member from Shuswap, who got cross-party support. So where else do you see MPs from the Conservative Party, from the NDP, from the Greens, all supporting moving to a selective fishery, really calling on the minister to go forward with this, pursue the research, pursue getting this thing off the ground. It's really unheard of in our neck of the woods, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, and so far she hasn't responded. Budgets are not just about spending taxpayers' dollars. Budgets are about priorities.
Yeah. Yes.
Setting priorities.
Yeah.
And the government had an opportunity in this budget to set a priority for the West Coast fishery, the salmon fishery,
Right.
making sure that our wild salmon stocks recover, but
Yeah.
in the meantime that our angling industry remains healthy. They had a chance to prioritize hatchery marking of fish.
Right.
They didn't do it.
Budget
Nothing.
on it?
No. And if you think about that as a taxpayer, spending money is one thing, but it's what do you get on the return? And I'm going to tell you that if you marked more fish and had more options to go fishing, the return would certainly outweigh the cost, probably 10, if not 100-fold. So it's a conversation and a debate that should just end.
Now, our minister is not from the West Coast. She's from the East Coast,
Right.
correct? And sometimes I wonder whether she has a full understanding the needs of the recreational angling industry here in BC.
Well, in the rep, we have Terry Beach is her PS. Parliamentary secretary is supposed to be her advisor on the West Coast. So even with all of that, we still see nothing, which is isn't it a statement on priorities, as you said it?
Yeah, it is about priorities, and when you spend more than any other budget ever in the history of the country, and you don't prioritize an industry that could be resurrected and made healthy again, when you have the options for selective fisheries and selective fishing technologies, and you won't approve them, that's your responsibility.
That's an abrogation of responsibility.
And I think, Fred has really hit the nail on the head there. The economic benefit farther on so outweighs anything that we're doing.
So there's something that I want to bring up, and it's really important because you talked about the logbook program, and it was just a bunch of anglers that got together and said, let's record what we catch. We proved that we didn't catch a lot of fish, but what we did is we proved what we could and could not fish. But at the end of the day, what we also did is we calculated how much time it takes to catch a Chinook salmon on the Fraser River here in the logbooks. And back in the day when there was a fair number of fish, it would take over 100 hours. If you calculate that out with the provincial government's value for an angling day, that one Chinook, Terry, if you caught, is worth over $5,000.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
We're not talking about a commercial fish where you can buy a salmon for $100 or $20 a pound. We're talking a fish, and a lot of those got released, worth $5,000. That's a huge economic driver to this economy.
The 5,000 doesn't go to this mysterious place to be spent. It goes to the coffee shop down the street in Chilliwack. It goes to the boat builder that might be out in Abbotsford that builds aluminum boats.
Absolutely.
You name it down the chain, and all the families that it feeds and provides for, that one Chinook that's caught in the river.
But here's one thing. That's $5,000 if you're a BC resident. You bring somebody over here from England or Denmark, that grows exponentially. Yeah. And I'm going to guarantee you, most of those people don't want to keep a fish. They want to release it. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah. They've lost all their fisheries over the years. So they come here with the enthusiasm of knowing that they just want to be able to touch a fish, and again, a single barbless hook gives us the ability to quickly release that fish and give them a quick little picture down the water, up she goes, quick shot, and they are so satisfied, and they will come back time and time again. Right. What we've seen is the letters from many, many clients over the years that are not going to be coming to Canada anymore to fish the Fraser River. These closures are killing this whole entire economy, and not only that, it's also the social well-being. It's the camaraderie that guys like Fred and I have been involved in over the years. That fun, that emotional benefit of being together, hanging out. We've impacted children, grandparents, great-grandparents. We have impacted so many different people's lives. It's given an opportunity to really grow not only our community here, but all up and down the Fraser River, not just here.
What you say, Dean, is the Fraser River. If you think about it, how important is the Fraser River? It's not just about a few of us out here bar fishing. This river feeds the Strait of Georgia and the entire West Coast. This is one of the jewels. We've got it several of them. This is important.
You hear a lot of talk about in the media, it's called intergenerational equity, where are we leaving future generations with a better world?
Yeah.
And better opportunities that we've enjoyed. I mean, we've enjoyed a lot of opportunities, all of us. We're all about the same age. Maybe Bob's a little bit younger.
20 years older.
But you know what? We are enjoying a wonderful lifestyle. But can we leave that to future generations? Will they be able to fish this amazing jewel of a resource? I don't know.
If DFO starts to listen, there is a chance.
There is a chance.
There is light at the tunnel. It's very weak, but it is there. And it's people like Dean and you guys
And Fred.
that will make that difference.
So we're talking about threatened stocks. We're helping that out. We're helping in that let them go by instead of being caught. Alternative methods for catching fish.
Yeah.
That let the threatened ones go by and the ones that are plentiful are caught.
Yeah.
We're really talking about restoration here, not what people might be thinking is just pulling fish out of the river, right?
Well, I think the other thing that's really, really important, and I don't know, I hate to be critical, and it's easy to criticize DFO. I think that what is important is that when you have the people that care about the resource and benefit from that resource, First Nations, public fishery, commercial guys, it's all about building trust and respect and understanding, because what is happening in the 40 years I've been around is this conquered divide. So these private meetings and these guys don't like these guys and you're disagreeing and arguing, that is so counterproductive to what really needs to happen. The people that care about the resource, that benefit from that resource, need to be engaged, they need to be cooperative and respectful and in search for better answers for the future.
So
That's it.
Absolutely. Let's bring in one of our experts on selective fishing on a larger scale. We talk about selective fisheries and the positive impacts it can have for communities and sort of the higher volume. Peter Krahn. We've talked about selective fishing. We've seen a demonstration here today for the viewer. We've seen how you can personally selectively avoid a fish or selectively catch a fish. And we talked a bit about where you need to catch more fish selectively for a community, for instance, along the river. And Peter has done some great research on that very thing, as to how can you selectively fish in bigger quantities. Peter, explain your technology.
So I'm a chemical environmental engineer, and I've worked with many different industry groups on environmental solutions. And the reduction of the salmon population is one of those environmental issues. So we have to look at how is the system working and what new tools can we add to that system. So about 3 years ago, I started some research on ways fish are caught and how to catch them selectively. And I spoke with many different users and have come up with a system that's now in the patenting process. And we're going to partner with First Nations and look at alternatives for catching fish. So it's based on a mechanical system that is used for catching fish. It's a modification of a fish trap. And what that does is it allows fish to come into the trap, to be selectively harvested out, those that might be adipose fin clip. And that's why it's so critical that the hatchery fish be marked, so that people who are using these traps can extract the fish out, take the fish that they want, open up the release gate and let the others swim. And the objective is to not even touch them or bring them out of the water.
I think the whole point of your expertise is that the bycatch is going down to zero. Rather than catching fish kind of accidentally, that's what bycatch means, is catching threatened stocks.
That's right.
As an example, or threatened species. This you can completely avoid doing that.
Yeah. And what it allows, it allows for fish to, in the case here, just up the river, to separate into, say, the Harrison River. And then we can catch those fish that are abundant and take them out and let, say, endangered steelhead or sturgeon go, so that we don't injure the bycatch. In fact, we can do a lot of science with them. We can tag them, measure their survival, and provide both a cultural and economic opportunity to help rebuild fish stocks.
I think that's the coolest part, is you're providing for communities, but you're not just sort of status quo letting fish populations continue to decline. You're actually helping those threatened stocks increase in population.
That's
and that's what selective fish, it really allows for that to happen, and that's what we're really needing right now with some of our threatened species.
That's right. And in fact, I'm getting a lot of support from both the provincial government and even the Habitat Division of Fisheries and Oceans. They want to be able to use this technology to do their science. Not only are they interested in looking at the mature fish going out, but even monitoring the smolts that are out migrating. So it opens up the ability to science and in some cases real-time track the fish population and the recovery.
And I think that's what's really cool about this whole effort is you have a bunch of really concerned people about the salmon and really want to do help the populations in our rivers, help the communities that rely on salmon for their livelihoods and their businesses, and communities, really families is the way I like to refer to it, because these businesses, and you mentioned before, Dean, it isn't just your own household that relies on this particular business. It's 20 other mouths that are fed by or provided for by this business, and Peter as well, for the communities that rely on salmon for various reasons for their diet. You could do that with and also help those threatened populations.
Yeah, and the way we're going about it, actually, I just want to mention, is that we're promoting research. So in speaking with Fred and Dean, we've made application for funding to demonstrate both the selective fishing techniques for the sport fishery and how that helps restore the stock, and also for support and how would you build some of these systems. So their knowledge, the knowledge of the First Nations, are all being incorporated together, and that's the cooperative effort that we're trying to promote.
Thanks again for watching. For the viewer, just some last words. We'll start with Dean.
We just look to a better future, better management, cooperative dealings, open dialogue, where we can find some solutions to keeping everybody, the present and future generations, out enjoying what we have here. And probably one of the last things I want to say is I believe that the Fraser River should really be listed as one of the wonders of the world. Wow. And I think it's so powerful here that I wish viewers would really have an opportunity to come here and feel what it's felt like us, myself and Fred and other people. We fished out here for over 50 years. Our families have fished and recreated here. And the power of that mental, social well-being of being together out of the river, having an opportunity to just fish. I really feel that we really need to work hard to get to that place again.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at, just being out here and to be able to look at the river, whether it's got fish in it or not, you'd like to think that the future is going to be much brighter. And, the value, socially, economically, you can beat that to death. But at the end of the day, it's this treasure that we need to protect. And we need to do that in a collective manner. And all we're asking DFO is to listen, be transparent, get innovative. Don't keep looking backwards. If you keep looking backwards, you're just going to drive into concrete walls. And there is an overwhelming amount of people that want to help, to give, to donate, volunteer time, money, whatever it takes. But it's all about innovation, fishing selectively, fishing smarter, and moving forward. That's the key here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Fred. Peter.
Yeah, I want to also just sort of express appreciation for the groups that we've been working with to develop this new technology. We're actually looking at very traditional methods that have been developed by First Nations and sport anglers, and we're combining them with new science and new engineering, and that's hoping to help stabilize the population and enhance it. Benefits our economy that we really need for people to live every day to day, and the social aspects that people need to live a healthy and vibrant life.
Ed.
Well, I look at the river behind us. This is the mighty Fraser River. I talk about the Fraser Valley being nestled between majestic Mount Baker and the mighty Fraser River. This is a world-class resource. It's ours. And it's ours to steward wisely. What are we doing about that? Will we be leaving future generations with an opportunity to fish this river? That's what's at stake here. And Fred, you were talking about DFO. Yeah, we're calling on DFO now to do the responsible thing and to allow the recreational angling industry to survive and to have access to fish in a manner that restores the health of the wild salmon. This is our resource, the mighty Fraser River and the salmon and the other fish that are in it. Let's treat it in a way that's going to protect it for future generations.
Thanks, everybody, for your time today and bringing us over here. Minister, we're asking for you to open up a selective fishery. We're asking you to make that decision now. There's people at stake. There's real people here that want to make a difference, and we just want to give them that opportunity to make that difference, Minister. So for the viewers out there, thanks for watching.